What if one of the greatest secrets in the universe wasn't discovered in some billion-dollar supercollider, but on the back porch of some guy in rural Missouri? Well, that's what we're diving into today. This is the absolutely wild story of Mike "Madman" Markham, who, while trying to build a better bug zapper, might have actually built a time machine.
So let's set the scene. It's the mid-90s. The place? Stanberry, Missouri. A pretty typical small American town. You know, the kind of place where you wouldn't expect the laws of physics to get completely turned on their head. But that's exactly where our story begins.
And this is our guy, Mike Markham. He's a self-taught electronics whiz. And look, he wasn't trying to rewrite science textbooks. He was just a tinkerer, you know? He was trying to improve a pretty classic high-voltage device. But his experiment? It went spectacularly and kind of wonderfully wrong. He ended up creating this shimmering heat-like distortion just hanging in the air, a vortex.
So what do you do when you accidentally create a weird energy vortex on your back porch? Well, you test it. Markham grabs a simple sheet metal screw and just tosses it in. And poof, the screw vanishes into thin air. A few seconds later, he hears a clatter. It reappeared a few feet away. Was this teleportation, or was it something way, way bigger?
It all kicked off with Mike Markham, a man whose back porch was basically a graveyard of old electronics, TVs, CD players, you name it. Spools of copper wire and magnets everywhere. For him, this wasn't junk. This was his laboratory.
The thing at the center of all this was a Jacob's ladder. You've definitely seen these in old sci-fi movies, right? Two metal rods with a crackling arc of electricity that climbs up. But here's the thing about them. They're super finicky. You have to start them manually, and even a little humidity can make them not work at all.
This is where Markham's backyard ingenuity really shines. He had this really clever idea. He figured, what if he took the laser emitters from a bunch of old CD players and used them to heat up and ionize the air between the rods? The idea was to lower the air's resistance so the arc would just spark up all on its own. It was a brilliant, low-budget solution.
But it didn't work. No spark. Instead, he got this weird circular distortion hovering right over the device. And this is that key moment. He tosses the screw in, it's gone, and then it's back. He did it again and again, and every single time the exact same result. He knew right then that he was onto something absolutely huge.
All right, so let's get into the nuts and bolts of this thing. How did he actually build the machine that created this bizarre effect? It really just boils down to some fundamental electrical engineering that he pulled off with a bunch of spare parts.
So he needed a ton of voltage, way more than you can get from a wall socket. So he built his own transformer. And the concept is surprisingly simple. You've got two coils of wire. Power goes into the first coil, which creates a magnetic field. Then the second coil, which has way more turns of wire, takes that magnetic field and turns it back into electricity, but at a much, much higher voltage.
And by hand-wrapping hundreds and hundreds of turns of wire, Markham managed to step up his house's standard 120 volts to a mind-boggling 20,000 volts. That's the kind of power you need if you want to start messing with some really unusual electrical phenomena.
Now, to really get at what that number means, think of electricity like a water hose, okay? Amps are the amount of water flowing through the hose. Volts are the pressure. So Markham's machine wasn't necessarily using a huge amount of electricity, but it was focusing it with immense pressure. It's like squeezing the nozzle on that hose to create a super powerful, focused jet of water.
Well, Markham's little porch prototype fried itself pretty fast. He knew he was onto something, but he needed more power. And that hunger for more power led to a really bad idea, an arrest, and then, completely out of the blue, his big break on national radio. So he needed some serious hardware. He ended up stealing 6 massive industrial transformers from a power substation. His new, much bigger machine allegedly worked so well it caused brownouts across town, and even made his living room couch disappear. Yeah, naturally, this led to his arrest and 60 days in jail. But, and this is a big but, it got his story in the newspaper, which caught the eye of the legendary late-night radio host Art Bell.
So when Markham gets on Art Bell's show, Coast to Coast AM, he's not just telling some ghost story. He starts getting really technical. He's talking about using square waves and controlling duty cycles. I mean, these are terms for precisely manipulating electrical signals. It's the language a real electrical engineer would use, not some random guy spinning a tale.
And this is the moment. Art Bell, who was an expert in electronics and a licensed ham radio operator himself, he knew exactly what Markham was talking about.
This little back and forth was so important. It was Art Bell's genius at work. He let an expert validate another expert live on air. And just like that, Mike Markham had instant credibility with millions of people listening in.
After that interview, everything just exploded. Donations started pouring in. You have to remember, this was the late 90s, when these kinds of fringe ideas were finding huge audiences. Listeners sent money, equipment, someone even offered him a warehouse. In a flash, Markham went from a guy on a porch to the head of a pretty well-funded research project.
And just look at this jump in power. I mean, he went from 20,000 volts on his porch to 70,000 with the stolen transformers. But in the warehouse, with real funding, he built a machine that could handle an unbelievable 3 million volts. The scale of this whole thing just went off the charts.
Okay, so how could this possibly work? Mainstream physics, Einstein, tells us you need immense gravity, like a black hole, to bend time. But Markham's argument was that electromagnetism, the force he was messing with, is astronomically stronger than gravity. His whole theory was that you don't need the mass of a black hole if you can generate enough electromagnetic force. High voltage instead of high mass.
But wait a second. There's a classic problem in time travel stories that almost nobody talks about. The Earth is hurtling through space at insane speeds, right? So if you jump forward in time, shouldn't you reappear in the cold, empty vacuum of space where the Earth used to be?
And you know what? Markham had a surprisingly smart answer for this. He claimed his machine didn't just move you through time, it stayed locked onto the Earth's gravitational center. In other words, it would move with the planet through space as it traveled through time. It's a really clever solution to a really thorny problem.
So there he is. He's got a 3 million volt machine, a working theory, and a team of supporters watching. There was really only one test left to perform, the human test.
So according to the story he told Art Bell years later, Markham stood in front of this massive machine and he stepped into the vortex. And he was gone. He says he woke up in a field in Ohio with amnesia. After he finally got his bearings and saw a newspaper, he realized it was the year 2000. He had jumped 2 full years into the future.
Now, it's really important to separate the main story from all the internet myths that popped up around it. Markham himself actually confirmed that there was no cat on that disappearing couch. And that creepy story about a time traveler washing up on a beach in the 1930s, that's a myth too. If we want to understand this, we have to stick to what Markham himself actually claimed. So what are we supposed to make of Mike Madman Markham? Was he a brilliant charlatan? A deluded genius who got in way over his head? Or was he a genuine pioneer who, on his back porch in Missouri, actually stumbled onto a secret that could change everything we think we know about reality? The story is out there, and the answer, well, it remains just out of reach.